Oh no.
Oh no. The coldest of cold opens, dead silence. Like that, just like that. Yes, indeed. So
So
right.
anyway, that's why we should get rid of all the... Wait.
What? No. No, 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 no. Ignore the man in the corner. He says nothing useful. You've listened to this podcast long enough, you should know that. Welcome to Preferred Enemies, the Warhammer 40k podcast that knows all is dust. I'm your host, Rob.
Kevin?
And Richard.
No Dennis today. He is actually busy doing orchestra things. Yes, he plays cello. I don't know if you know that. Little factoid for fans of the show. But if you didn't catch by the intro, we are talking about the fourth and final god-specific Legion codex for Warhammer 40k, and that is Thousand Suns, which should be going up for pre-order when this episode drops.
Woohoo.
And thank you to GW for providing us a copy of the Thousand Suns Codex in exchange for a fair and honest review. And so now we have all four. If you buy the special editions for a ridiculous amount of money, you can complete your Amulet of FOMO, and we will talk about the Thousand Suns.
The Year of Chaos finally wraps up.
Well, we still have Chaos Knights coming down the pipe, theoretically. And I've seen so many people complaining, it's not the Year of Chaos, look what Space Wolves are getting, which they got the Terminator drop that they got. You know, it's just what they'd already showed for like Adepticon was really good, but then the Terminator drop they did, those look just amazing.
Pretty cool.
And somewhere Blood Angels players continued to cry out in anguish for not getting a really solid relaunch the way that Space Wolves are. So I'm sure that Dennis will have opinions when he's back on the show about the models, and I'm not saying bad opinions or opinions that they're bad. I'm curious to see what he says about them. But so we know those are coming soonish. If I remember the roadmap, they were kind of in the now or next section. Like they're coming soon.
They were soon,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, which makes them a perfect pairing with this codex because it's the faction that hates them the most. But before we get into that, though, I do want to drop a little bit of Midwest Conquest updates. We're sold out.
Yeah, that's crazy. Like it in the last couple weeks, it just ramped way up, and we were sold out of everything. We were out of space.
Yeah, like to the point where and I say I'm not running the events, but I am working on the raffle army. But I'm in the know of what's going on. Midwest Conquest has reached the point there are no more tables. We'd have to rent additional tables to fit everybody in. Especially compared to last year. Last year, we had to shift weeks 2 weeks early to Mother's Day weekend, which is the weekend we're recording this episode. Happy Mom's Day to all the moms out there. But the GT last year had only 32 people. The Age of Sigmar event was 8. The narrative was like 7 or 8 people. Bolt action was about 14. This year, the GT, I think, is currently at 78. They technically have 2 spots available, but I don't know where they're going to put them if they do register. The narrative is at 25 or 26 people?
Yeah, 25, I think, right now.
Yeah. Age of Sigmar exploded to 36 people from 8 last year. And to the point where it's like our TO for Age of Sigmar kept saying, hey, I was wondering, can we get some more tables? Because I think we gave him spots up to like 16 and then went up to 24 and then went up to 30 and now it's at 36 and I think he still has a wait list.
Yeah. I know that he has. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. So this is going to, I don't think there's any way to pretend otherwise. This is going to be the biggest Midwest Conquest ever, with so many different games being represented, to the point where I don't know if we can fit anything else in. I mean,
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. Like I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. And I was concerned that because there's also a US Open happening in Dallas the same weekend that we would lose players to that. That especially like with the narrative and the GT, that there would be people like, well, yeah, I could play at your event, but there's the big official one a few hours. Well, it's like an 8-hour drive from here, but you think that would draw a lot more national players, and maybe it is, but we're not hurting regionally. It's awesome to see, and we were sweating it for a bit. We were talking about like, well, maybe turnout is lower, maybe people are burning out. I don't know. Nope. They were just waiting. They were just waiting to see what their schedules looked like. So, yeah, it's awesome news. So if you want to sign up for Midwest Conquest, you're too late. We pretty much have to close registration because we are sold out. We have no more physical space to put anything. That's awesome. 2025, biggest Midwest Conquest ever. If we hadn't missed a year or so from the pandemic, this would have been Midwest Conquest 9, not counting the 4-player one we had in 2015. I don't count Midwest Conquest 0.
Yeah.
But Midwest Conquest 9, technically, So next year will be the 10th anniversary of Midwest Conquest. That'll be awesome. I'm looking forward to that. And also, if you did manage to get a ticket for Midwest Conquest 2025, please buy tickets for the raffle army. I've been putting in a lot of work to have a really nice looking Eldar army for people to buy tickets for. I'm super stoked for it. I also hate painting swooping hawks. I thought for sure the Avatar of Cain was like, I was going to save that one for last because I'm like, I got to work on this one all by itself. This is going to be like the centerpiece model, and it's going to be like the hardest one to paint. And it came together really fast and looks. I'm really happy with how it looks.
That looks really great.
No, it's Baharath and the Swooping Hawks that I ended up hating the most, and I'm like, I've got them done, and I think they look decent. I think they look good. And every painter knows, like, you look at a model that you've painted, and people will be like, that looks great, and I look at it like, I hate everything about this. I can see everything that's wrong with this, and that's how I feel about them. On the other hand, I really am happy with the Fire Dragons and the Dark Reapers. They're really good. I'm working on Storm Guardians, Rangers, Shroud Runners, and Warp Spiders, and a couple other characters, and some Shining Spears. Like, they're all in various states of completion. Like, they're like, none of them will take a long time to do. I've got 2 weeks as of right now, but so I'm actually ahead of the game compared to where I normally am at when I'm painting these, because usually like the last week is a mad dash, and I think this time the last week will be just finishing up basing and getting magnets on them for the custom army box they're going to be in, because we have somebody I believe they're going to actually do a Samhan themed like magnet army tray holder box.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so it'll be really cool, and it's going to come with a copy of the Eldari Codex. So if you don't currently play Eldari and you win this army, you'll be able to hit the ground running. You'll have the Codex, you'll have an army. It is over 2,000 points. I think the grand total is like 2,350 or something like that. So you've got a little bit of options, and it's got a couple squads of Guardians, so you can always lean into like the Guardian detachment or just the generic War Host. It's got the Avatar and several squads of Aspect Warriors, so if you want to do the Aspect Shrine, that works. It's got a number of jet bikes, so if you want to go the Wind Rider host, like, you can build it and lean into any of those detachments, and then that kind of gives you a direction of what to expand into. So we wanted to get a good, well-rounded force. Hopefully this will fit the bill, and I'm excited to see what people think when they see it at the convention itself.
Well, and then as we mentioned, it's going to be raffled off. The money for the raffle tickets is going to go to support the Veterans Community Project, which is a Kansas City charity that now is expanded out around the country, but they build houses for homeless veterans, and then for KU Med for support for their cancer charities and their cancer support for local people. So two great projects, two great charities to help. So we hope everybody that comes, throws in a couple bucks. Yeah, we're really excited.
Yeah, and gone back and looked at how many armies I have painted over the years for charity, and it's always cool to be able to paint something like this and send it off into the world with somebody who is very happy to get a new army. It's a lot of fun, and it is for a couple of very good causes, so buy lots of tickets if you're there.
Yeah. I'll have to go back and look at the numbers, because I don't have them from each year like at hand. But if this is the 9th year that we've done this, we've probably raised over $10,000 for charity. Like, because I think we usually do over $1,000 each year. So that's fantastic. So thanks, everyone.
Yeah, no, everyone's been very, very generous. Like, just some people just buy up like hundreds of tickets to get a chance to win. And yet the funny thing is sometimes it's the people who buy like 4.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a raffle, it's random. Yeah. But please buy hundreds of dollars of tickets. Yes. That would be awesome. Yeah. But anyway, moving on from Midwest Conquest news, let's get into the Thousand Sons, the chosen legion of Tzeentch, god of change and magic. And we've talked about how tragic are the various Chaos Legions. And, we said the Emperor's Children, not tragic at all. They saw what was going on. They jumped whole hog into it. The Death Guard kind of got tricked into theirs. The World Eaters, lots of daddy issues. They just wanted daddy's love. And Angron got screwed over. But it's the Thousand Sons that have had the perennial argument that Magnus did nothing wrong. And I think this is strongly debatable, because if the Thousand Sons have any repeating flaw, it is hubris. It is absolutely hubris. And I get it, but you still messed up. So the Thousand Sons were one of the founding legions back during the Great Crusade, and they had the highest percentage of psychically capable members. And their Primarch, Magnus the Red, who was known for having reddish toned skin and one eye, and it is still debatable whether he was born with one eye, like Cyclopean style, or if he had lost an eye. And I am amused as hell that his Demon Primarch model says yes. The answer to all of those is yes, just depends on which head you want to pick.
I know, I love that.
But Magnus the Red was a very loyal Primarch. Like, if of all the Primarchs who ended up going to Chaos, I do think he's the one who least wanted to.
Yeah.
Like, because, like, you look at the others. Angron absolutely hated the Emperor. Fulgrim just went utterly insane with Slaanesh power and just went for it. Mortarion was not terribly fond of the Emperor. Perturabo did not like how his legion was often just like thrown into meat grinders and was just kind of a generally unpleasant person. Who knows about Alfarius and Omegon? Like, we still don't know if they were weird double triple agents or not.
Yeah, they did nothing wrong.
Yeah, and Conrad Kurz was like, well, this might as well happen.
By the time the Horus Heresy came around, he was already basically a traitor anyway. So
right, but not for Chaos. He was just like, I'll just murder everyone because I'm evil Batman.
Yeah.
But Magnus was very loyal, and as time went on, though, there were some issues that started popping up. They were also the legion that was most prone to mutation. Their psychers generally didn't mutate too badly, but a lot of their non-psychers would have mutations pop up. Not like really glaring, gross ones, but still enough to raise some eyes. And there was also increasing concern about the presence of psychers in the Space Marine legions. And eventually there was a Council of Nicaea, not to be mistaken for the Council of Nicaea in Christian history, but the Council of Nicaea basically agreed, we should not have librarians. They are communing with the warp in some way, and bad things are likely to happen. So we should not do this. This did not go over terribly well with Magnus, because he himself was a very powerful psyker, and a lot of his legion were psychers. And he was like, yeah, that's kind of our thing, but to his credit, he was gonna he was really going to try to clamp down on it and not do it too much, but they were still doing it in secret. And eventually, Magnus became aware of Horus's rebellion. And he even tried to reach out to Horus and say, you ought not do this. This is a bad idea. And Horus rebuffed him. So Magnus decided, I have to tell the Emperor. There's nothing for it. I have to tell the Emperor. The fastest way to get a message to the Emperor is if I just contact him psychically. This came at a very bad time because the Emperor was also deep into working on the Webway project to utilize the Eldari Webway to no longer have to use warp travel. And he was like in the middle of one of the major portions of this project when Magnus psychically forced his way into the Imperial Palace to, like, his spirit basically jammed its way right up to the Emperor's presence and said, look, bad things are happening. Horus is rebelling against you. And the process of it, like, wrecked the Webway project. Yeah. And so the Emperor decided, look, we'd agreed you weren't going to do this. You just did it. I have to send somebody to bring you back into compliance now. And so he sent the Space Wolves. Here's the thing, though, because the Thousand Sons also got screwed by Horus, because Horus was still technically War Master at the time, and the Emperor didn't get the message that Horus was the traitor. So he told Horus, okay, you need to send the Space Wolves to bring the Thousand Sons into compliance because they screwed up and they're using sorcery again. And Horus is like, oh, well, this is perfect. I will tell the Space Wolves to go destroy the Thousand Sons instead. Which led to many bad feelings and a lot of slaughter. And their homeworld of Prospero basically got effectively razed to the ground by the Space Wolves. And there was nothing left for the Thousand Sons to do but use sorcery to escape. And so they escaped into the Eye of Terror. And Magnus basically made deals with Tzeentch to, like, okay, look, my sons are being attacked. I gotta reach out to somebody. Please help. So kind of similar to what happened to Mortarion. Mm-hmm. And so equally tragic, but this wouldn't have happened if Magnus had agreed to the terms that he had already agreed to on not doing sorcery and not using librarians.
Or counterpoint, this wouldn't have happened if the Emperor just told them what was going on, too.
Not
if they'd
wrong.
Explained why.
Yeah, not wrong. But also, the Emperor is a bad person and a poor father, and, like, don't get me wrong, there's lots of criticism that can be levied at the Emperor. He does not come out of this smelling like a rose.
Wait, it's almost like the whole theme of 40K is that everyone is bad.
Yes. But in the end, the Thousand Sons leaned fully into magic and pacts with Tzeentch, which, god of magic, god of change, perfect companion to the Thousand Sons. This did not help the mutation problem. In fact, it made it exponentially worse. What? To the point where the non-psychers in the remnants of the Legion were having really bad flesh change. They were mutating horribly. And again, hubris. They're trying to figure out how to fix the problem. And one of their head sorcerers, Ahriman, decides, you know what? I can fix this. So he does some research and he comes up with a spell.
And he solves the problem and nothing bad happened. The end.
Yes. He's like, I can fix him. And so Ahriman decides, Ahriman researches this spell called the Rubric of Ahriman. And despite the fact that he is pretty much told you should not do this, he does it anyway, and he casts the spell. Good news! I fixed the flesh change problem. Bad news! I did it by getting rid of the flesh part.
Well,
all the non-psychers, every single one of them in the Legion was reduced to dust, sealed inside their armor. Their souls are only vaguely tethered to their bodies. They have no personalities. They are basically just automatons. They can be controlled by the psychers, who can kind of imbue them back with a little bit of a sense of free action, but they are literally hollow shells of their former selves. Although I do think it's interesting that during some of the battles in the webway between the Inari and Ahriman, because Ahriman got kicked out of the Thousand Suns, basically exiled by Magnus, who came down from his tower and said, "You did what? Get out. Don't come back until you can fix this." And so Ahriman has spent the last 10,000 years searching for knowledge on how can I undo the rubric and fix everybody. So kind of tragic, but it's his own damn fault. But during the Battle of the Webway, where he's been using the Webway to try to find the Black Library, the repository of Eldari knowledge that might have the information on how to fix this, he's fighting against the Inari. And Ivrain's like, I can fix them, right? And she manages, I don't think she restores them to flesh, but she's able to bring their souls back and they have personalities again. And some of them are like, wait a minute, why are these guys in blue and gold looking all demonic fighting? We should fight them. And for the second, Ahriman's like, oh my God, they're really back. It's really them. I remember them. I miss them. And then, Ivrain has has a Wraith Knight bust a hole in the side of the webway, and it sucks all the fixed rubrics back out into the void, just to prove a point. It's like, I can fix them and I can take them away from you. Ahriman can't win for losing.
I take back what I said. There are heroes in 40K.
But I will say, of the various Chaos Legions, I don't think, even though they are the servants of the god of plans and change, if there's any faction that does not have a single driving plan against the Imperium, it's the Thousand Suns, because it's a whole bunch of individual psychers doing their own things. They've fractured into various groups and bands and cabals, and they're all just pursuing their own sorceress interests. Sometimes they'll join in with Black Crusades, but Magnus doesn't really have any driving goal other than, I hate the Space Wolves and I want them all to die. That's like the closest thing they have to one unifying drive. And so they have attacked Fenris on more than one occasion. And because they just, and I don't blame him. I totally get it. Again, a tragic legion, but tragedy of their own making, just because they thought they knew better, rather than the tragedy of their own making of, it's not the, if it feels good, do it, or all my sons are dying of plague, please fix this, or why won't daddy love us, let's have the brain needles. And instead, it's just like, nah, psychers are cool, we know better than you do, and bad things happen. So yes, Magnus did do things wrong. That is the standpoint of this podcast. This is our stance, that Magnus did in fact do things wrong. I get it, but he still made mistakes.
Path to Chaos is paved with good intentions.
It often is. Ask any Inquisitor that's gone radical. It really is. But, as I mentioned, the Thousand Suns are broken into various cabals of sorcerers, and so this will transition us into the codex proper, because that is the army rule of the Thousand Suns. How do you recreate a psychic army in an edition that has no psychic rules of note? In the Index edition, they had a rule called Cabal of Sorcerers, and all your various psychers would have the rule Cabal of Sorcerers X, and that was how many points they contributed to a pool every turn that you could then spend to do psychic abilities, which just kind of happened, and you had points, and then that pool would clear out every command phase, and you would start again with a new set of points. It was very powerful to the point where it had to be eroded a couple of times in the balanced data slates. Some of the powers got toned down. They limited, they prevented you from having the same psyker do things twice, things like that. They toned down some of the powers. They focused on what they could do, because there was a stretch there where Thousand Suns were really, really strong, and they have toned them down. They've completely overhauled the army rule. It is still called Cabal of Sorcerers, but it could not function more differently. So the new rule in some ways is a throwback to the days of old. And I love this army rule, how it works. I have some concerns about it, but I love the concept of it because it brings back the psychic test. Something that I wish every faction was using something like this, but then it wouldn't be special to the Thousand Sons. So the new rule is, if your army faction is Thousand Sons, at the start of your shooting phase, so that's the first change, is this does not happen in the command phase. This starts in the shooting phase. So at the start of your shooting phase, one or more models from your army with this ability can attempt rituals from those listed on the right. There are 4 rituals. To do so, select one model from your army with this ability that has not yet attempted a ritual this turn, and select one ritual no model from your army has manifested this turn. Then take a psychic test by following the sequence below. You roll 2d6. You may choose to channel the warp, which adds an additional die. Then, if one or more doubles or triples were rolled during this test, the model's unit suffers d3 mortal wounds. If the model is not destroyed, then the combined total of the dice is total. You add up all the dice, and if it beats the warp charge value of that ritual, then that ritual gets manifested and you resolve its effects. So, a few things here. First off, the powers do not always go off. Now, none of them are harder to cast than a 9, so on 2d6 you've got a pretty good chance. On 3d6, unless you roll really badly, you've got a really good chance of casting any of these.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got a nice risk reward. Anytime you do it, you have a chance of hurting yourself. And unlike, say, a hazardous weapon, it's the unit that takes the mortal wounds. So if you have a character who's joined to a bodyguard unit, or you have a unit of rubrics where they have an aspiring sorcerer built in, it's the rubrics that would take the wounds, because it's just the unit that takes the mortal wounds. I also like the fact that even though, there are only 4 abilities, so technically you can manifest at most 4 of them. But you can keep attempting one until it's manifested. So it's like, I need to cast Doombolt with this guy right here. I didn't roll high enough. Okay, well, next Psyker, maybe he can cast Doombolt. And you can keep doing that until one of them gets the power off. Mm-hmm. And then you can move to the next powers. The other thing I do like about this is one of the problems with Cabal of Sorcerers in its earlier incarnation is that it got worse the longer the game went, because you would start running out of Psykers, which would make your pool smaller, which would make the powers harder to cast. Because, for example, Doombolt, power I just brought up, costs 7 Cabal points. A lot of the sorcerers only added 1 or 2, maybe 3 points to the pool. So if you started losing sorcerers, you might not have 7 points to cast with. Now right. It's like, as long as you have a Psyker, you can try to cast one of these. And this army tends to have a lot of Psykers, so you'll have lots of opportunities to cast. And it doesn't matter how good a Psyker it is. It could be an aspiring sorcerer in a rubric unit. It could be Magnus the Red himself. They're all generally equally good. Some of them do have abilities that will make it easier for them to cast, but it might also increase the chance that they take mortal wounds because they roll more doubles. The rules themselves, or the rituals themselves, have also been changed, and I would say they've been toned down. There used to be 5 in the index. There are now 4. The one they lost was the one that let you do a free stratagem. Since they're kind of trying to stamp down on free stratagems, I'm not surprised, but it is sad they didn't replace it with an alternate 5th. But our 4 options are Destiny's Ruin, which is Warp Charge 5, select a unit within 24 inches and visible to the Psyker. Until the end of the phase, each time a Thousand Sun model from your army makes an attack that targets the unit, reroll a hit roll of 1. If the psychic test was a 10 up, you can reroll the hit roll instead. That's something that you'll see on all of these. The effect gets stronger if you roll higher, which is also more incentive to channel the warp, try to get the more powerful ability, just risk reward. We love risk reward here, so definitely for that. Temporal Surge, select a Thousand Suns unit that is not in engagement range of one or more enemy units within 24 inches invisible to the Psyker. They can, this is Warp Charge 6. If it's successful, they can make a normal move of up to D6. If the psychic test was a 10 or more, it can make a normal move of 6 instead. In either case, they are not eligible to charge. Doom Bolt, Warp Charge 7. Select an enemy unit within 24 inches, visible to the Psyker, excluding units with Lone Op that are not part of an attached unit and not within 12. So basically, this does not ignore Lone Op, which is a big deal because it did in the Index. That unit just suffers D3 mortal wounds. If the psychic test was an 11 or more, it's D3 plus 3 mortal wounds. This got significantly toned down from the Index version because it used to be D3 plus 3. Because you would spend your 7 warp charge points, roll a D6. On a 2 to 5, it would be D3 plus 3. On a 6 or more, it would be D3 plus 6. Now, there's no chance of it not going off, but it'll never do the up to 9 damage. So it's been significantly toned down. But the range did get longer, because it used to be 18 inches. It's now 24. But it doesn't ignore Lone Op anymore, so it's not as strong for sure. And then finally, Twist of Fate for a 9. Select an enemy unit within 24 inches, visible to the Psyker. Until the end of the phase, every time a Thousand Suns model from your army attacks it, improve the armor penetration by 1. If you rolled a 12 or more on the test, it's improve the AP by 2. This one is also weakened because it used to not require a roll, and it used to automatically be, well, as of the balanced stage slate, it is just automatically AP improves by 2. The previous one in the Index before they fixed it was just like no armor saves allowed, which is cruel and bad. It is now just AP minus 1, AP minus 2 if you roll high enough. I have mixed feelings. Like, on the one hand, I have mixed feelings on this because I love the psychic test. As an old school player, I love seeing that back. And because you can channel the warp, you can push it and make it more likely to get the powers going. I really dig that. I do like the fact that you can keep trying the powers with different psychers until they go off. So it's not, you only get one chance to Doom Bolt. You only get one chance to Temporal Surge. No, you can keep trying until you get it working, which, depending on how you layer psychers in your army, that can give you a lot of opportunities to get the power going on the unit or units you need it to go on. On the other hand, the powers are all generally depowered from the previous version. Mm. They are weaker effects in many cases, or to get the same effect you had before, you have to roll higher on the test, which means you have to generally take that risk reward of rolling the extra d6. They are a lot less consistent. They are weaker, They are less consistent. If your dice hate you, you will just not cast psychic powers.
Yeah, I like this system because, as you mentioned, like, I do like the psychic roll, and, you know, harkens back to some of the older editions of the game. It does have the weird knock-on effect, though, that, like, the Psychic Legion is less likely to get psychic powers to go off than other armies, which is just weird. Like, I get why, because you can still do your normal psychic attacks and your normal psychic abilities. It's just these extra one, you know, so it's this extra layer on top of it. But I don't know. I like it. I think it's very thematic. But yeah, it's not quite as powerful as some of the other army rolls.
Right. And it's the one that has of the three that existed as a faction beforehand, because obviously we can't include Emperor's Children. They're brand new. But of the three, I think this is the one that definitely got weaker. Death Guard definitely got more powerful because their Plague Bubble, they just got better, and because it all keys into the afflicted status, and they have so many ways to apply that, it definitely got stronger and better. World Eaters is kind of a side grade. They lost some, they gained some, but functionally it works the same.
I don't know. The entirety of the internet's telling me it's the worst faction that's ever existed now, so I don't know.
I strongly disagree.
I don't know who to believe, the internet or people who read the books.
Yeah. Oh. What about people on the internet that do read the books? Who do we believe then?
I don't know. Those don't exist. People on the internet don't read.
But of all of them, I think the Thousand Suns got toned down, like blatantly toned down the most.
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessarily unwarranted. They're one of those factions that if you push them a little bit too far one way, they get very strong very quickly. I don't think this is such a bad nerf that it will ruin them, but it definitely tones them down a little bit.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out. This is also the one faction that none of us play. None of us have played that. I know, like, I think you have Thousand Suns minis, but I don't think any of us have played Thousand Suns.
Yeah, really. I basically picked up Magnus when he came out because I wanted to paint him, and then I have like some rubrics and a few sorcerers, but I don't think I've ever actually played with them.
I have the data cards.
Ooh.
Because they sent them to me instead of the Grey Knight cards.
Just as planned. I mean, that's so Zinchi of them.
Yep.
So basically, if we like fusion dance the two of you together, we will have theoretically 1,000 Suns player. As we did with the last few codexes, let's look at the units before we get into the detachments, just to provide necessary context. So we will start off, as we do with any Chaos Legion, the Primarch, Magnus the Red, who changed surprisingly little between his index and codex version. He did change, don't get me wrong, there are some definite improvements. Overall, his abilities, like a lot of it didn't change that much. He's got what we would expect for a Demon Primarch stat line: 14 inches of movement with fly, 11 toughness, a 2-up, 4-up save, 16 wounds, OC6. His range attacks, his Gaze of Magnus got stronger. It is now strength 11 instead of strength 9, which that's a big deal. That makes that trips that line into anti-vehicle. And with 24 inches of range, 3d3 shots, hitting on 2s with 3 damage, he can definitely melt something down pretty quickly, whether it's a unit of Terminators or a vehicle. He also has Zinch's Firestorm, and neither of these are pistols, so he can do both of them. That one also changed in that it got one stronger. It was strength 5, now it's strength 6. So again, 24 inches, d6 plus 3 attacks, hitting on 2, strength 6, AP -1, 2 damage. That'll also help clear out units of chaff. Its blast ignores cover, whereas Gaze of Magnus is devastating wounds. So strength 11 with devastating wounds, pretty nasty. Definitely the strongest of the Primarchs when it comes to ranged attacks. No question there. And of course, all of his attacks are also psychic. And then he has the Blade of Magnus, which is either 7 attacks at strength 16, AP -3, 3 damage, or 14 attacks with the sweep, strength 8 -1, AP 2 damage. The strike was already devastating wounds, so those didn't really change much. His melee attacks are still as good as they were, except the sweep is now 2 damage instead of 3. So he is a marine killer in close combat, which he should be. He's a demon Primarch. His abilities, he still has his unearthly power ability, which lets him choose one of 3 abilities, same thing we see on all Primarchs. He also has Lord of the Planet of the Sorcerers, which used to be a 6-inch aura of Psychers within 6 inches, add 1 to hit and wound rolls with psychic attacks. It is now he can do 2 rituals per turn instead of 1, and every time he attempts a ritual, he adds 2 to the psychic test result, which means there's very few powers that he will not be able to cast. The downside is, because he can do 2 of them, he can hog 2 of them and prevent you, because you only have 4. And I think that, again, one of the downsides of this is that, you only have 4, and he will get 2 of them. As far as his Primarch abilities, Impossible Form, every time an attack is made against this Psyker, excluding psychic attacks, subtract 1 from the damage characteristic. Treason of Tzeentch, at the start of your opponent's shooting phase, select an enemy unit within 24 inches of him until the end of the phase. Ranged weapons equipped by models in that unit have hazardous. And Time Flux, when a friendly Thousand Suns unit is within 6 inches of the Psyker, add 2 to their movement. I think for Magnus, I think you might actually have Time Flux up depending on what your opponent's running. Impossible Form is also very good for him because it will help keep him alive. But Time Flux is the most generally useful for your army. So I think either of those. The Treason of Tzeentch is fine. It's just, it may do nothing if your opponent doesn't roll any 1s.
Yeah.
Still a psychic powerhouse, still very deadly in his own right. He's not necessarily a must-take. He's not a big force multiplier for your army, but he is a big force on his own. So if you take him, you won't be unhappy. but he's definitely not a required linchpin of the army. This army will not function without him. Moving on, Ahriman, who lost his foot option. He will now only ride around on discs. He's gotten picky that way. Who is, again, still trying to fix that whole flesh problem. Hasn't figured it out yet, but he's armed with a transmogrifying blast, which is a D6 plus 1 18-inch blast. Strength 6, AP minus 1, D3 damage. And he's got a psychic staff that also hits for 3 damage at strength 7. So good at taking out infantry. His abilities are Scryer of Fates. If your army includes this model, basically you can redeploy up to 3,000 Suns units, which is I believe a big change from what he did before.
3,000 units? That's crazy.
No, 3,000 Suns units. Can't forget. I say 3,000 units.
No, I'm being a smartass.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah, he used to have an aura of when he's leading a unit, add 1 to the wound roll, and he can still lead units. He just does nothing for them. He uses them as bodyguards. That's about it. He also has the ability, every time he attempts a ritual, you add 1 to the results. So again, he's more likely to cast, more likely to get the better results. But he's a leader who brings nothing to his unit other than he needs them for the bodies and to absorb any miscasts. Infernal Master, which also joins Rubric Marines, and he actually gives the unit he's attached to sustained hits 1. And then he's also got a Torrent Psychic attack at strength 6, AP minus 2, 1 damage, one of which you can do double the number of shots for the risk of being hazardous. And once per turn, he can change the result of 1 hit roll, wound roll, or saving throw made for him to an unmodified 6. So he can adjust his own fate, and he makes your units better with sustained hits 1, which he can only join Rubric Marines, but I'm going to say sustained hits 1 is really good for Rubric Marines when we get to them.
Yes.
You've got the generic sorcerer, just a regular sorcerer on foot, who has a psychic blast that is strength 5, AP minus 1, 1 damage, sustained hits 3. When he's leading a unit, who he can also only join Rubric Marines, they get lethal hits, which also good, but I think sustained hits might be better. Like, both are fine. Like, you won't be unhappy with them. I think getting more hits might be better with this one, but you still have to roll a wound, so I could see it going either way. And then once per battle in your shooting phase or fight phase, he can use his Twisted Sorcerer's ability, improve the strength and attacks characteristics by psychic weapons equipped by this model by 3, which is either his force weapon, which would get it up to strength 9, or his sustained hits 3 attack, which would get up to strength 8. And 9 attacks at strength 8, not bad. He's okay. He's fine. The Exalted Sorcerer, on the other hand, I definitely like him leading unit of rubrics because he can restore destroyed rubrics. And that's something he could do in the index as well. And while he's leading a unit, they have a 4-up invulnerable save. So he's probably the best one for having a unit that just sticks around. So like if you want to cap an objective, the Exalted Sorcerer is probably the way to go if you just need to hold it. You also have the Exalted Sorcerer on disc. That's something else I noted. The Exalted Sorcerer on disc and Ahriman, who is on a disc, went from 12 inches of movement to 10. They slowed down, which matches the speed of Zangor's on disc. They were also only moving 10, so I thought it was interesting that they capped their movement at 10 rather than 12, which I guess plays nicely with Magnus's aura of +2 movement.
Yeah.
The Exalted Sorcerer, when he's leading a unit, they basically get 18-inch lone op, but he can join Rubric Marines or Zangor Enlightened, which I believe are also on discs.
Yeah.
And then he has Binding Tendrils in the shooting phase after he has shot, which he has either an Inferno Bolt pistol or an 18-inch Ignore Cover Psychic Torrent that is strength 6, AP minus 2, D3 damage. After he's hit a unit, and it has to be with the Arcane Fire, so the Torrent attack. After he's hit somebody with Arcane Fire, the unit is ensnared, and they are -2 to move and -2 to charge. So this is not a melee heavy army, so anything that can slow down a charger is not a bad choice.
Mm-hmm.
We've got our demon princes of Tzeentch, one on foot, one with wings. The one on foot has the same ability that we have seen on other demon princes on foot, in that he gets lone operative if he's within 3 inches of a Thousand Sons infantry unit. And every time a Thousand Sons Psyker model with the Cabal of Sorcerers ability is destroyed while within 9 inches of him, select one of the models with this ability, and until the end of the turn, whenever you attempt a ritual, add 1 to the result to a maximum of 2. So basically, every time one of your sorcerers dies near him, he absorbs their ability to do... I mean, he already has Cabal of Sorcerers, but he absorbs their ability to do rituals and gets better at it. So in the end, you can make him like a tiny Ahriman or Magnus, which is kind of interesting. And then while he's friendly infantry Thousand Sons units within 6 inches of him have stealth, which plays really nicely with them giving him lone op. So he will help keep them alive longer. They keep him alive longer. However, eventually you want the Psykers around him to not be alive, because then that lets his spirit snare go up. Although I don't think it's necessarily that you want that to happen. It's just insurance against it happening.
When it happens.
Yeah. And otherwise, he's similar to other demon princes, except for the fact that his melee weapons have devastating wounds, which is nasty. And besides the Infernal Cannon, he also has a Psychic Sustained Hits 1 attack at Strength 4 with 9 attacks. So he can help clear out units of weak models, and he's got some very nasty attacks depending on... Like, you charge him into a unit of, like, guard infantry, and they're gonna die really badly. With the Demon Prince with wings, again, same thing, all of his attacks have devastating wounds. He's interesting. When he targets characters, he rerolls hit rolls and wound rolls of 1. If it's a Psyker, he rerolls all the hits and wounds. And every time he destroys a character, he heals D3 wounds. If it's a Psyker, he just recovers a full 3 wounds. And then when he's set up on the battlefield using Deep Strike, you can perform an Ether Stride. If it does, you can set up within 3 inches from any enemy units. His Dark Blessing Psychic ability gets sustained hits D3 instead of sustained hits 1, but he can't make a charge.
Nice.
So built-in 3-inch Deep Strike, which will, I'm sure, be eroded by the battle to a 6.
Yep.
The thing is, like, other than being able to place him somewhere where you wouldn't be able to place him otherwise, none of his attacks, since he can't charge, none of his attacks really benefit from being closer. So it's just an increased placement ability. Because, like, if his Dark Blessing had a much shorter range, then I'd be like, oh yeah, that's really good. But it's a 24-inch range. I don't have to Deep Strike near you.
Yeah.
But if you want to get him onto an objective, that's not a bad place to be.
I mean, you get some extra hits out of it with the sustained hits. Well, potentially, because the sustained hits D3, but...
Yeah. And then we have the Sorcerer in Terminator armor, who can join Scarab Occult Terminators. Has an Inferno Combi Bolter, and this is the first time we're going to get to see how nasty the Inferno Combi Bolter can be. Inferno Bolters got better AP. They're AP2, which is huge. AP2, Rapid Fire 2, and we're going to see that on Rubrics and Scarab Terminators as well. And that is across the board. Like, all the Inferno weapons improved AP by 1, and that's kind of nasty.
Well, and that basically means that if you do the you pair that with the I forget which one it is, the one that ritual that gives you +2 AP, you're at AP -4.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, because that doesn't cap out.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you don't roll high enough and you only get the AP1, that's still, like, if you roll 9 through 11, that's still AP3 total. That's really good.
Yeah.
Oh, and the Infernal Cannons on the Demon Princes of Tzeentch are also AP2 instead of AP1, like their other gods' companions. Now we get to the new unit, the Sekhetar Robots.
They're robots.
They sure are. They're 4 wound vehicles. and they're not as cool as crisis suits. I mean,
Nothing is though.
No, well, very few. Yeah, they come in units of 2 to 4. They're 4 wounds each. Tough 6, 3 up, 5 up saves. OC 1, 8 inches of movement. I mean, they're stat lines are okay. Infiltrators and stealth, that's not bad. Being able to infiltrate these is good, and they've got decent weaponry. So I don't hate them. I just don't know if I like them, or the weaponry on them. Not bad. So by default, they're armed with a heavy warp flamer, a Hellfire missile rack, a Pyroflex meltagun, and they can instead replace the meltagun with a warp flame projector. I'm not sure why you would, because you already have the heavy warp flamer.
If you wanted to double down on just clearing out infantry, like that's why. But
I suppose. So the heavy warp flamer ignores cover torrent. 12-inch range, so standard heavy flamer, strength 5, AP -2, 1 damage, D6 attacks. The warp flame projector is D3 attacks, strength 3, AP -1, 1 damage. These are not the same. This does not allow you to double up on it. And what you're giving up to take that warp flame projector is a meltagun that is strength 10.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's just inherently better. It is only one shot, but you have a unit of 2 to 4 of them. They are hitting on 4s, and I think that's also the thing that really hurts this model, is that it is only hitting with half of its attacks. And the same thing with the missile rack. Strength 10, I like it. AP -2, 3 damage, 36-inch range, 2 attacks, but hitting on 4s, and it hitting on 4s in close combat as well. Also, I see why you would replace it, because I didn't finish reading the line. You can replace the meltagun with a warp flame projector and a power claw, and then you get a strength 10 power claw.
Yeah. Still don't know if I would, but yeah, like it. I could see the way things are kitted out. There being a couple uses. They could be dedicated anti-vehicle. They could be dedicated anti-infantry. Like they seem to be one of the few things that's like could be a good dedicated melee unit. I didn't say dedicated because you're hitting on 4s, but at least something that could hold its own and do damage in melee. So
right. Yeah, it's like, I don't hate it. I just don't like it. I'm very unenthusiastic about it.
Yeah. No, that's mostly what I've heard. I think when the models like were announced, people were like, but why? And that's kind of where I'm at. Like, I get they fit the theme of like automaton and stuff like that, but like, I don't know, like, do they need more robots? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it just doesn't quite feel like it fits. Like, and also I look at this and I'm like, I don't know if this fills a gap that the army really had, because especially when we get into the other units they have other units that can do what this unit does better. I think the main benefit of these is the infiltrators and stealth. This infiltrating is not terrible, and I'm sure there will people that will make good use of it. There are other choices that I think will be equally good, and there's only one detachment that is really going to potentially help this.
Well, I'm looking at it right now. Let's see here. Kind of, obviously we're going off the points in the book, so it's hard to like know exactly what they are, but it's 290 for a unit of 4. What are the points for war dogs?
They're 140 points each.
Yeah, I mean,
like 140, 145 points. For 2 war dogs, I would take 2 war dogs any day.
Yeah, it's like, okay, these are half the cost of war dogs, but war dogs are twice as good. So I would rather just take the war dogs to fill that gap.
Right.
And you've got more. You've got more options to dedicate them. So I don't know. I don't know that they necessarily fill a role that can't be filled elsewhere. But
right.
And also, I kind of just don't like the models, too. That's the other thing.
Now, they do also... One ability I didn't mention is once per battle round, they can Overwatch or Heroic Intervention for free. That, with Infiltration, is not bad.
And the double flamers to just torch things. So
so like a unit of 2 or a unit of 4... Because there's no point value in taking a unit of 3 because of how points work. You're either taking 2 or 4. I mean, that's a lot of flamers, and they're not bad flamers. The heavy warp flamer's pretty solid. I would not want to be overwatched by this, so there's definitely a role if you want to play KG, infiltrate these, and just make the middle part of the table unsafe for your opponent to move around in. Although that's, again, only going to be useful against infantry, because I would not trust the melt-a-guns and missile racks with Overwatch, because you're still only hitting on 6s. I think the other thing that bothers me about these is there is no synergy with any of the rest of the army. None of these attacks are psychic, so they don't get any benefits from any abilities we're going to see later that provide psychic effect. Nobody can join them, so they can't get any benefits from leaders. They just kind of are there. They don't have an aura of like bodyguarding for psychers or doing anything for your Cabal of Sorcerer abilities. They're just there. And you've got plenty of other units that are just there. And as you said, you could take a pair of War Dogs and have more wounds, a much tougher set of models, unless they change the rules for how War Dogs, like how Chaos Knights ally, which they could, and that would immediately make the Sekhetar better, just because there'd be less competition.
Mm-hmm.
But as of this moment right now, there's nothing a unit of Sekhetar Robots does other than that potential Overwatch that a pair of War Dogs couldn't do much better for a similar number of points. So then we get to our rubrics, or I should say we start off with the Scarab Occult Terminators, but both Scarabs and Rubric Marines have the RoeTaKa keyword, and that will be important later when we get to detachments. But the Scarab Occult Terminators, like we saw with the Sorcerer and Terminator armor, they have Inferno Combi Bolters that have AP -2 instead of AP -1. They can also take Heavy Warp Flamers at AP -2. They have their Soul Reaper Cannon, which was their Assault Cannon equivalent, is also AP -2, which is very scary. Also, it has Devastating Wounds. And that might actually be an issue for having the Sorcerer and Terminator armor join, because he gives them lethal hits, and you don't want that with Devastating Wounds, because you can't get the Dev Wound off if you roll 6 to hit.
Yeah, exactly.
But they do have the ability that while this unit contains one or more Psyker models, which it always will, because every unit of Scarab Occult Terminators includes a Sorcerer model, and that Sorcerer model specifically still has the Psyker keyword. They even say at the bottom, Scarab Occult Sorcerer only, Psyker. So you always have a Psyker in the unit. Each time an attack targets this unit, as long as there's a Psyker model in it, subtract 1 from the wound roll. They are tough 5, so now even strength 10, 11, 12 weapons can never wound them on better than 3s. And strength 5 weapons are only wounding them on 5s. They're going to be really hard to shift.
Yeah. It makes them incredibly durable.
Yes, very, very durable. Now, Rubric Marines, they have not really changed terribly much from their Index incarnation. They still have the ability to reroll wound rolls of 1, and if they're targeting somebody that's on an objective that you don't control, they reroll all wound rolls instead. And they also have the access to a Soul Reaper Cannon with the same stat line as their Terminator cousins. But also just their base Inferno Bolt Guns. They are not rapid fire. They are just 2 attacks and strength 4, AP -2, 1 damage. I think there's a strong argument here that if you don't take the Soul Reaper Cannon, lethal hits or sustained hits could go either way. Lethal hits with the Inferno Bolt Guns, very good. They also have access to the Warp Flamer. The entire unit can take Warp Flamers. And I have seen horrifying things done with with Warp Flamers. You know, we talked about how, the Sekhetars, they might be decent Overwatch because they get them for free. A squad of 10 Rubric Marines, all with Warp Flamers, strength 4, AP -1, 1 damage, because they come in squads of 5 to 10, or I guess 4 to 9 rubrics. So 9d6 Flamers will give a unit a bad time.
Yeah.
Also, if you take the Icon of Flame, and why wouldn't you? Because it's free, your weapons all have Ignores Cover, which your Warp Flamers already do, but now Inferno Bolt Guns with Ignores Cover, also terrifying. because nothing's going to make that AP any better for you. So your options for joining them, the Infernal Master gives them sustained hits 1, the Sorcerer gives them lethal hits, the Exalted Sorcerer gives them 4-up invulnerable save and can restore destroyed models. I still think that's the best one, but point-wise, depending on what you take, just the lethal hit Sorcerer would be fine. If you're going to take a Soul Reaper Cannon, you might go the Infernal Master to get sustained hits 1 instead. What you take is going to be based on like how you equip these and who you have join them, but very solid battle line unit for this army, and they will actually get even better when we get to some of the detachments. Then we get into their tanks, and they are the one Chaos Legion outside Chaos Space Marines that kept Vindicators. Why? Because I don't know. Again, I think this book exists to further make Emperor's Children players feel bad.
As they should.
As they should. Unlike the Sekhetar Robots, these actually seem to have some synergy. Also, all of them can take Inferno Combi Bolters on top, and yes, like all the other Inferno Combi Bolters, they are AP -2, so why wouldn't you? So, your Predator Destructor, which is your anti-infantry Predator, has the Ensorcel Destruction ability every time this model makes a ranged attack that doesn't attack a monster or vehicle that was hit by one or more psychic attacks from one of your psychers, including Doombolt. The strength and AP goes up by 1. That's not necessary. They don't need more AP. There's so many ways to get more AP. That's unkind. The Chaos Predator Annihilator, on the other hand, is made to kill monsters and vehicles. That's the one with the double las cannon. Every time it targets a monster or vehicle that was made by one or more psychic attacks by 1,000 Psyker, including Doombolt, you can re-roll the hit roll and re-roll the damage roll.
Useful.
Yeah, very, very useful. These are Predators that I think you might actually, like in this army, you might actually take these. The Chaos Rhino is a standard Rhino. Like all the other Chaos Rhinos lately, it lost self-repair. But instead, in your shooting phase, after this model is shot, select one enemy unit hit by one or more of those attacks. Until the end of the phase, each time a friendly model that disembarked from this transport makes a psychic attack that targets the enemy unit, add 1 to the hit roll and 1 to the wound roll. This one's okay. It's just only going to affect either the aspiring psyker or any character that's attached, because most of your attacks are not psychic. So it's going to make like one guy's attack a little bit better. It's a nice little buff, but it's far from super amazing. And then the Chaos Vindicator does not have anything that ties in with other psychic abilities or Thousand Sun abilities. It is just a Vindicator with Inferno Combi Bolters and a Demolisher Cannon, which is very solid at D6 plus 3 attack, strength 14, AP -3, D6 damage. I've seen other armies use Vindicators to very good results. I don't see why this one would necessarily be any different. Like I said, its biggest thing is it has no synergy with the rest of the Thousand Sun stuff, unlike the other tanks.
Yeah.
And then the Chaos Land Raider is a Chaos Land Raider. It has an assault ramp, and it has Inferno Combi weapons. It's fine. I mean, if you need something to deliver Terminators, you might as well. But it's not going to do it. It's kind of like the Vindicator. It doesn't do anything special that another Chaos Land Raider does. The Hellbrute is pretty standard Hellbrute's weapon options, although again they have the option of the Inferno Combi Bolter, and their Heavy Flamers are all AP -2. They also can take a twin Inferno Heavy Bolter for sustained hits, twin linked, and also AP -2 damage each. So depending on like what you want to kill, you've got plenty of options here. And they've got the rule Terrifying Assault in your shooting phase and the fight phase after this model has shot or fought. Select an enemy unit hit by one of those attacks, they have to make a battle shock test at -1 if they're within 9 inches of a psyker unit from your army. So you've got Hellbrutes that can inflict battle shock. Don't hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's not a lot of other battle shock abilities here, so this one's kind of splashed in. Or like a lot of units, I don't think they're necessarily must takes, but I can definitely see them fitting in. I would say there's a pretty good internal balance in this army. Like, I don't see anything that's so super powerful that I'm like, oh no, you have to absolutely run this. But there's a lot of good choices. Now we get into our demon engines. The Forge Fiend, which your shooty demon engine with the blazing salvos ability in your shooting phase. After this model is shot, select an enemy unit hit by one or more of those attacks. Until the next turn, they are suppressed. They're -1 to hit. We've seen suppression abilities before. They're useful. Good strong shots with the ectoplasma cannon. Not a bad choice.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Mauler Fiend, which faster than the Forge Fiend, has plenty of strong attacks between the Mauler Fiend Fist and the Lasher Tendrils. Why would you ever take Magna Cutters? Lasher Tendrils are so much cooler.
Yep.
With the Snarling Protector ability, you can target this unit with Heroic Intervention for 0 and can do so even if you've already targeted a different unit with Heroic Intervention, which you probably won't that often unless you're running 2 Mauler Fiends, because Heroic Intervention and this army don't really play well all that much.
But still, it's a nice ability to have.
It is a nice ability, and in addition, each time this model declares a charge that targets an enemy unit within engagement range or one or more of your 1,000 Psyker units, you can reroll the charge roll. That's where this becomes an anti-assault unit. And I think that's where this could be really useful, depending on what you're used to running into. If you run into a lot of assault armies, you might want to splash in a Mauler Fiend or two, because they can definitely help out in a pinch. And then the Defiler. We love Defilers lately just because they've been doing some very interesting things with them. And again, like they can take Inferno weapons, so you've got lots of low AP. I think you can take a Havoc launcher, but why? It's the one weapon that doesn't have an AP. It's just AP 0. The Defiler cannon is strangely the lowest big AP at only AP 1. Everything else is AP 2 to 3. But I mean, it's still a strength 10 gun, which is not bad. And then it does have a Feel No Pain 6-up, which very nice. And it has the Scuttling Walker. It can go over friendly monsters or vehicles and sections of terrain that are less than 4 inches high. And then Destroyer of Futures. Every time you target this unit with Overwatch, or with specifically the Fire Overwatch stratagem, I should say, you hit on 5s instead of 6s, which I like.
Yeah.
And then for each of those attacks that targets an enemy unit within 9 inches of one or more Psykers from your army, you hit on 4s instead. That's terrifying.
Like they're muscling in on the previous Tau thing of being good at Overwatch.
Right. Those were the days. The Helldrake. Yep, it sure is a Helldrake. Moving on. Oh, that reminds me, they fixed the Emperor's Children Helldrake to no longer have a 2-up save. It's only a 3-up now. Now, I will say that it has the Bale Flamer and the Hades Autocannon on the Helldrake did go to AP2, which matches what we're seeing with a lot of the other stuff in this army. And when it moves over units, they lose the ability to have cover. I still wouldn't take a Helldrake. They're still not good. Chaos Spawn in this army are fine. 5-up Feel No Pain, and they regenerate up to 3 wounds. So this is the hard to kill Chaos Spawn.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if you need them necessarily in this army. They're also they're not as fast as Thousand Suns. They don't hit as hard as World Eaters. They don't provide plague the way that Death Guard ones do.
Yeah, it feels like it feels like you've got other options that do better, that do what they would do better.
Right. And you are capped at 2, and they have a 4-up, 5-up Feel No Pain with 4 wounds. I mean, with only 2 models in the squad, I don't know if they'll have the survivability to really make that regenerating monstrosities ability useful. And you've got other choices for like action monkeys in this army, so I don't know if you necessarily need it. Then we get into our mutants, the Zangor Shaman, who can join Zangor Enlightened or regular Zangors. He is a Psyker with Cabal of Sorcerers. When he's leading a unit, they add 1 to hit. Very nice. And also, when he's leading a unit in your shooting phase or fight phase, every time this unit is selected to shoot or fight, you can use Sacrificial Blessing, in which case you just pop a bodyguard unit. So, like, kill one of your Zangors. And this model adds D3 attacks and D3 strength to their psychic weapons. And that's a theme we will see in their detachment as well. Is making sacrifices for power. And their psychic attack is already D6 attacks, devastating wounds, blast, 18-inch range, strength 9. So getting that up to theoretically strength 12 with D9 attacks? Oof. Or D6 plus D3 attacks? Not terrible. Is it worth sacrificing a Zangor for? Maybe. But, kind of interesting. Zangor Enlightened got split into 2 units because, again, without war gear points, we can't balance different options. They are also on discs because of the 10-inch movement. The regular Zangor Enlightened have the option to take Chainsword and Auto Pistol. Otherwise, they can take a Divining Spear, which is, I guess, depends on what you want, because the Chainswords have more attacks and have precision. Well, but the Lance has precision as well, the Divining Spear.
The Lance, the big thing is, like, what do you want them to be doing? If you're wanting them to be a unit that's out there charging and hitting things first, then you want the Divining Spear because you want the Lance ability. Right. If they're going to be more defensive and more, like, taking charges and, like, kind of screening, then you want the Chainswords.
Yeah. However, their ability, Prophesied Doom, wants them charging. Every time they end a charge move, you select an enemy unit within engagement range. Roll a d6 for each model in this unit within engagement range, and for each 4-up, they suffer a mortal wound. This unit wants to be charging. So I would think they come with the Divining Spear by default. I don't know if there's enough reason to not take that, especially because as a precision weapon, it's Lance, it's already strength 5, so against like Marine characters, it's going to be wounding on 2s if you do the charge, plus you're doing mortal wounds, plus it's AP -1 and 2 damage as opposed to the 0 and 1 AP and damage for the Chainsword. I think you stick with the Lance with this one. It just it fits what they want the unit doing. And if you've got a Zangor Shaman leading them, they're +1 to hit, so they're hitting on 3s instead of 4s. Yeah, this is definitely, I would think they want you doing this one more offensively. On the other hand, the Zangor Enlightened with Fatecaster Great Bows, they basically can do a d6-inch move if someone ends a normal advance or fallback move within 9 inches of them and they're not in engagement range with anyone. And the bows are lethal hits, precision, 2 shots each, hitting on 4, strength 5, AP -2, 2 damage. So both of these squads are potentially character killers. This is the one that you want to have hanging back, falling back. Whereas the Zangor Enlightened, I think you want charging the ones with the spears, you want charging forward all the time. And then regular Zangors at the end of your opponent's turn, which they can be in units of 10 to 20. If this unit is more than 6 inches away from all enemy units, they can just immediately go back into strategic reserves, no matter where they are on the table. Otherwise, they are a pretty basic cultist type unit with 6-up saves, 6-up invulnerable saves, strength 3 auto pistols if you want to take those. I don't even think you take auto pistols with these. I think you just stick with the Zangor blades.
Yeah, that's what I've always done with mine.
Yeah, strength 5, 2 attacks as opposed to 3 with the Chainsword, but I'll take strength 5 over. I'll take attacks that wound more, especially when you can take up to 20 of these guys. You don't necessarily.
Yeah. Also, the Chainsword and auto pistol is a separate upgrade sprue you have to buy separately, so I just stuck with the Zangor blades because it's what came in the box.
Yeah.
It's not worth the money or the effort to swap them out.
Right. They can take an upgrade that lets them reroll advance and charge rolls, and an upgrade that lets them improve their leadership by 1 if they're on an objective. Well, maybe they're free, so you might as well take the horn and the banner. I don't think there's any reason not to.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And then there's the one that I think this is the one we most likely thought was going to get dropped because it's more of a fantasy model, and that's the Mutilith Vortex Beast. And nope, they kept it. its new ability to play with the Cabal of Sorcerers ability is whenever a 1,000 Sun Psyker within 6 inches of this model channels the warp, which means they take the extra d6 to the roll, they add 1 to the psychic test result. Doesn't make them any less likely to double or triple out. It just means they're more likely to successfully cast.
Yeah.
And then otherwise, they have an aura of mortal wounds to enemy units, and that will also cause battle shock tests. Yeah, this thing was decent. I mean, it was good in the index. It is no worse now. The mutating vortex ability, which is the mortal wounds and cause battle shock test, that's pretty much unchanged. And the 3 options it has for its warp vortex, which you only get to fire 1 of them, are pretty much unchanged. There's one that is really strong against like marine types, strength 9, AP -2, 2 damage, D6 plus 3 attacks, blast. There's a beam that is strength 18, and it's only 1 shot, but it's D6 plus 6 damage and devastating wounds. And then a torrent, which is strength 6, AP -1, 1 damage, 2d6 shots. That's the same as in the index, so it is still an absolute monster.
In a rarity, the beam did lose 1 AP. So
did it?
Yeah, it used to be
went from
AP4. So
I think in this army, that's not a problem. There's so many ways to improve that, and still AP3 is very solid. So
the Mutilith Claw's melee attack lost 1 damage. It used to be 4 damage. Now it's only 3.
But went up to strength 10.
Tweaks.
So
yeah. So probably better.
Yeah. So strength 10. You cross that 10 strength threshold against vehicles, which I think that's I'm fine with the 3 damage if I'm more likely to wound.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not to ignore the pun. This thing's a beast. I think you want to include as at least one of these, maybe 2. Like,
yeah,
it's very useful.
And then we get into the demons that got added into the codex, which, as always, we get the named Greater Demon and the regular Greater Demon, so Kairos Fate Weaver and the Lord of Change. Kairos Fate Weaver with its 1 head looks forward, 1 head looks back abilities. You make a leadership test at the end of your command phase. If you pass, you get a CP. And every time your opponent targets a unit from their army from the stratagem, if they're within 12 inches of Kairos, it costs 1 CP more. So he can really disrupt your opponent's use of stratagems. And then he's got just really strong psychic attacks between his Witchfire, Focused Witchfire, which is just D6 plus 3 or D3 plus 6 attacks, depending on if you make it hazardous or not. You're not getting more attacks, you just become hazardous to get more consistent attacks, and everything is 9s, because of course it is. It's Tzeentch, that's the magic number. And then the regular Lord of Change, who has a 6-inch aura of the Scintillating Legions, which is their specific demon factions keyword. Add 1 to the strength. Basically, whenever they make shooting attacks, if they're within 6 inches of the Lord of Change, it's +1 strength. And then in your shooting phase, you select Ignores Cover, Lethal Hits, or Sustained Hits D3, and its Bolt of Change attack, which is also 9 attacks at strength 9. Gets that ability. So just every shooting phase, you can decide which one you want to have. You can make it hazardous for an extra AP. It goes from AP 1, and for more damage. You can go from AP 1 damage to AP -2 D3 damage on the Bolt of Change if you make it hazardous. More of an aura to make your demons shoot better, and this is the Shooty Demon faction. You've got Flamers, which have strength 4, AP -1, 1 damage, psychic torrent shooting. They can shoot when they fall back. And Screamers are their anti-vehicle melee choices with strength 6, AP -2, 2 damage, anti-monster, 4-up, anti-vehicle, 4-up. Why can't melted weapons be that cool?
Mm-hmm.
3 attacks each in a unit of 3 to 6. And they can cause mortal wounds from flying over units, which I think is pretty much the way they currently function. And then finally, pink and blue horrors, which do the split thing. Every time a pink or blue horror model in this unit of pink horrors is destroyed after the attacking unit has finished making its attacks, assuming the unit has been wiped, you roll a d6 for that model. If it was a pink horror, you add 2 blue horrors. And if it was a blue horror, you add a brimstone horror to this unit. And they have the rule, Horrors are pink. Horrors was blue. Where once there was one, now there are two. That is the full name of the rule. If at any point this unit contains no pink horror models, you switch to the blue horror datasheet, which has different abilities. So while it still has at least one pink horror, it has the split ability. But if it ever runs out of pink horrors, then it becomes a blue horrors unit, which has a less good stat line and also, more importantly, has 0 OC. And blue horrors and brimstone horrors themselves have no OC. So this unit's, even as it splits, this unit's OC will slowly drop. But the blue horrors also have sullen malevolence. While the enemy unit is within 6 inches of them, they reduce the leadership of the enemy unit by 1. And if they fight and you have brimstone horrors, the brimstone horrors can explode and do mortal wounds. But only once you've run out of pink horrors in the unit. Like, the pink horrors kind of hold them together, and then they can become blue horrors. And I believe you can take blue horrors by themselves as well. Blue horrors for a unit 10 are 115. Pink horrors for a unit of 10 are 140. I think unless you're very points conscious and trying to squeeze in something, I think generally you would take the pink horrors first. And of course, these are book points. They don't matter in real life, but in general, the pink horrors are going to be a better choice.
Yeah.
So that's all the units. Let's work through the detachments. There are 5, and one of them, the Grand Coven, is similar to the Index detachment. It has similar kinds of rules, but they did change it up a bit. So the detachment rule for the Grand Coven is Kindred Sorcery. In the command phase, you select one of the following abilities listed below. It affects your psychic weapons, and you can only select that ability once per battle. This is changed from the detachment rule, because the detachment rule you just picked one every command phase and they were reusable. Now you only get this 3 turns. And your options are Imbued Manifestation, add 6 inches to range. Psychic Maelstrom, add 1 to wound. Or Wrath of the Immaterium, they gain devastating wounds. None of them are bad, but what they used to have were being able to constantly either have lethal hits, sustained hits 1, or devastating wounds. And now you can do 6-inch range, +1 to wound, or devastating wounds once per game, which is a definite nerf. I don't think there's any way to argue that.
Mm-hmm.
Your enhancements, Lord of Forbidden Lore, add 6 inches to the range of a ritual, which they're generally 24 inches, so now you're talking 30. Incandium, I love it when they use Latin. Incandium, for an exalted sorcerer only, once per battle when you select a ritual, you can select Doombolt, even if someone's already manifested Doombolt. So once per game, you can Doombolt twice a turn. Now, that also means you don't get to attempt the second Doombolt until you cast it, like I meant. You just can attempt it twice if it's already been manifested. So, Incandium may get you nothing if you roll badly. Yeah. The Umbrellific Crystal, for any Thousand Suns model, once per battle in your command phase, if they're not within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units, you can put the unit back in strategic reserves. And then you can basically deep strike them, although they don't call it deep strike. It's just set up anywhere on the battlefield. It is functionally identical to deep strike. They just don't give the unit the deep strike ability because they don't want you deep striking in before you use the Umbrellific Crystal, I guess. And then the Eldritch Vortex of Ataf, any Thousand Suns model, add 1 to the strength and damage characteristics of psychic weapons. That and the Lord of Forbidden Lore are probably the best ones here. And then the other 2 are kind of situational. If Incandium just if it wasn't limited to once per battle, if you could Doombolt twice a turn, I would say that is a must take. But the fact that it's once per game, you can attempt a Doombolt a second time, but you might not manifest it and thus waste it, makes it a really, I don't think I want to take it.
I think what I would probably do, because you don't want to make it an auto take where you can just you can do Doombolt every turn.
Yeah.
I think you still make it a once per game thing, but you can attempt any of the rituals a second time. That at least gives you a little bit more flexibility. Now, Doombolt's most likely the one you're always going to use, but opening it up and giving you like a touch more flexibility without guarantees would make it a little bit more useful. As is right now, it's like you get one chance once per game to maybe do one thing. Like, it's a little too much, a little too iffy.
Right. Yeah. I'm not a fan of that one. Yeah, it could be better, but you're not wrong that if it was just Doombolt twice a turn, that would be an auto take because I think or if it said once per battle, you can manifest Doombolt twice a turn.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of good ones and a couple of iffy ones there. For your strats, Psychic Dominion, if somebody targets one of your units, the psychic weapons in the attacking unit gain hazardous, and you have 4-up Feel No Pain against psychic attacks. Good if you're playing against psychers, sucks if you're useless if you're playing against anyone else. I mean, totally fits the army, like fluff-wise totally fits. It's just, it's gonna be so useless in so many instances. Destined by Fate, for 1 CP, you can just reduce one of your psychers can reduce the damage of a single incoming attack to 0, and they do specify it's one that after you've made the saving throws. And they even call out, hey, if you're doing fast rolling, you can just like fast roll all your saves and then just pick one of them that you failed and say, nope, that one's a 0. So that's kind of cool. I do like how this one's worded. And they took fast rolling into account. Egotistical Power, we've seen this kind of strat before, where one of these things where you have like 3 modal abilities that you can choose between. This basically lets you pick one of those and apply them to a Psyker's unit, even if that one's already been used this game. Pretty standard thing that we've seen, but good to have in this case. Especially with Devastating Wounds or +1 wound being one of the abilities. Desecration of Worlds, sticky objectives for one of your Psykers. Good, sticky objectives are always good. Arcane Focus, in your shooting phase, just after you take a psychic test for 1,000 Suns model from your army that channeled the warps, you have to choose to roll the extra die. For 1 CP, you can re-roll all 3 dice. Now, it doesn't say re-roll any of them, it is re-roll all of them. So you can't go fishing for, like, oh, I rolled a 6 and a 5, but I rolled another 5, I don't want to get the double. You have to re-roll the whole thing. You have to take that risk again. But a reroll on something that is normally not rerollable, not too bad. And then finally, Devastating Sorcery. This one did actually come over from the Index detachment and got better. You choose a Psyker unit that has not been selected to shoot yet, and until the end of the phase, add 9 inches to their range, and you can reroll hit and wound rolls with psychic weapons. That one's very solid, and there's some really good psychic attacks, so I don't dislike that one. I mean, this is, like, if you are running lots of Psykers, which you're gonna be because it's 1,000 Suns, this is not a bad all-around in detachment, but it is not as good as the Index detachment. It is noticeably nerfed from the Index detachment. Then we get into our Demonkin detachment, the Change Host of Deceit. Your demons get a 6-inch aura of 1,000 Sun Psykers, get 4-up invulnerable saves against range attacks, which I don't know how useful that is because there's only a couple of Psykers that don't already have 4-up invulnerable saves.
Yeah.
Because the Infernal Master has a 5-up, the Sorcerer has a 5-up, but the Exalted Sorcerer, both options, the Demon Princes, the Sorcerer and Terminator Armor, and Ahriman are all already 4-up saves. 4-up invulns. The Scarab Occult Terminators have 4-up invulns. I guess the Aspiring Sorcerer in a Rubric Marine squad would get a 4-up invulnerable against range attacks. That is a very minor benefit. And then meanwhile, 1,000 Suns units from your army have the aura of a 6-inch aura of, like, Demon Psykers get Cabal of Sorcerers, which would be great if you had more than 4 abilities to cast. I still think, strangely enough, the Emperor's Children version got the best Demonkin detachment.
Yes.
The Death Guard one is okay. The World Eaters one is just disappointing because it doesn't play into synergy at all. And this one is, there's synergy, but it's not terribly useful.
Yeah.
Like this, like I was kind of disappointed by this one. I'm not sure what I would have had in place, but it's like this one just not terrible. It does give you more things you can that you can do your rituals from. And if you're taking 1,000 points, I guess if you're taking 1,000 points of demons, you're going to have one or more lord. You're going to have like a Lord of Change. That's the other thing, is you don't have a lot of Scintillating Legion Psychers, because it's just the Lord of Change and Kairos
Yeah.
Fate Weaver.
The point I guess I would make is that why it's useful is you at least are not losing Cabal of Sorcerers abilities, because you're having to pull other units out to put in those big things. So
Right.
yeah, I mean it's a mitigating damage ability rather than like a buff, which is that doesn't feel great. Now that said, the fact that you can put Kairos Fate Weaver and Magnus in the same army is brutal and devastating in so much.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah. Yeah, like I definitely see why it's there, because yeah, as you said, you don't want to trade off sorcerers and lose access to your rituals. I think the problem is just there's the most you could swap in would be 4, and that's a lot of points for 4, because it's three Lords of Change and Kairos Fate Weaver, and I have a feeling for 1,000 points in a 2,000 point game, you might be giving up a lot more sorcerers than just 4, and you're probably not going to put 4 greater demons into. Maybe you do. Maybe you put 4 greater demons in, and because let's see, as of this book, and again,
let's look and see. Yeah,
Kairos Fate Weaver is 260 points, and Lord of Changes, you can't fit 4 in to 1,000 points. You will be 10 points over.
Aww.
So
all right, we need Kairos to go down 10 points.
Now, let's see. Compare that to the current points, because again, this is book points, they don't necessarily matter. Lord of Change is 260 and Kairos Fever is 270, so they're even more expensive if we go off of index Chaos Demons costs. So yeah, you're only putting in 3, and if you do 3, you have like hardly any points for like horrors anymore. Pink horrors are 140 in the Chaos Demons index. Blue horrors are 125, so they're actually slightly cheaper in this book. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see these points stick and possibly lower the points in the index. But yeah, I think my problem with it is there are so few units that benefit from it that you can fit in, that it doesn't feel as useful. It does not feel as useful as the other, especially the Emperor's Children one.
So you could put in Kairos Fate Weaver, 2 Lords of Change, and 2 full units of Blue Horrors, and that's 990 points. I don't know that that's worth the trade.
No, especially because Blue Horrors are OC 0. Like 2 units of Blue Horrors don't do anything for you.
You could do a unit of Pink Horrors and a unit of Screamers. That's the other.
That would probably be the better way to go. It just is worth giving up 1,000 points of Thousand Suns stuff worth what you're getting there.
For Fate Weaver, probably.
For Fate Weaver, maybe.
and 2 Lords of Change.
Yeah. All right, so your enhancements, 2 of these can actually go on Lords of Change. Normally you only get 1 that can go on a demon model, but so we've got the Nether Shriek Mind Eater, Thousand Suns or Lords of Change model. At the start of your shooting phase, select a enemy unit within 12 inches invisible. They have to make a battle shock test. If they fail, they suffer 3 mortal wounds at the start of your shooting phase. Don't hate it. Diabolic Savant, Thousand Suns infantry model only, while the bearer is within 6 inches of 1 or more demon units. Every time the bearer channels the warp, add 1 to the psychic test result. Okay, I like that bit of synergy. I think that is a strong choice to take. Duplicitous Malediction, Thousand Suns or Lord of Change. After both players have deployed their armies, you can choose 3,000 Suns units. It's Ahriman's ability. You can redeploy 3,000 Suns units. And then Tome of True Names, Thousand Suns infantry only. Once per battle at the start of any phase, you can use this enhancement. If they do, until the end of the phase, you have a 2-up invulnerable save. That's going to be a must-take. I don't think anybody doesn't take that one. I mean, I can see uses for all of them, but I think Tome of True Names could be a must-take just to have that clutch, I need to survive a turn with a character.
Mm-hmm.
And then stratagems, Sulphurous Veil. When one of your Thousand Suns or Scintillating Legions units is targeted by a shooting or fight phase attack, -1 to be hit. Solid. Deceptive Glamour, Thousand Suns unit from your army at the start of the fight phase. Every time an enemy model within engagement range of your unit selects targets for its attacks, it can only target your unit if there are no eligible Scintillating Legions targets for those attacks. You'd have to have a unit that is engaged by both a demon unit and a Thousand Suns unit. They can only attack the demon unit. That's 2 CP and has a lot of conditions on it to really work. I don't know if it's worth the 2 CP. Ethereal Phantasm. When your opponent's movement phase just after they end a normal advance or fallback move, if they ended within 9 inches of one of your demon units, you can make a D6-inch move or a 6-inch move if they're within 6 inches of a Thousand Suns unit. Fractal Disjunction. In your opponent's shooting phase just after they've targeted one of your non-monster demon units, so not your Lords of Change, that unit gets 18-inch lone op. Chrono Sorceress Bleed. That's a mouthful. After your opponent has charged a Thousand Suns Psyker or Tzeentch Demon unit from your army, you subtract 2 from the charge roll, not cumulative with any other modifiers. And finally, Glimmership Portal. At the end of your opponent's fight phase, if you have up to 2 Tzeentch Demon units that are not monsters or 1 unit that is a monster that's not in engagement range, they can go into strategic reserves. That one's actually pretty useful for being able to reposition your like Lords of Change or a couple of units of Pink Horrors. I don't like the detachment rule that much. It's an okay detachment. Again, it's one of these things. I don't hate it. I just don't know if you get a lot out of it. It's sad that this is now that the Index Codex Demons has been updated, this is now the only way to ally in Tzeentch Demons into a Thousand Suns army.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of disappointing. I have not been near... I think the Emperor's Children Demonkin detachment set an unfair level of expectation for the others. The Warp Meld Pact. This is a mutant pack, which is mostly Zangors, but I believe it also affects... Let me confirm. I believe it affects Chaos Spawn. Yes, they are mutants. So, and I don't think none of your characters other than Zangor characters are mutants. So yes, this only affects Zangors and Chaos Spawn. But the Warp Meld Sacrifice ability. Every time an enemy unit is selected to shoot or fight and they're targeting one of your Tzeentch mutant abilities, you can make a Warp Meld Sacrifice. If you do, they suffer D3 mortal wounds until the end of the phase. The enemy unit is -1 to wound them. And every time one of your Tzeentch mutant units is selected to fight, you can take D3 mortal wounds, and until the end of the phase, every time you make an attack, you are +1 to wound. Also, all your Zangors have Battle Line, and +1 OC if they're not Battle Shocked. Which I was surprised to see that Zangor are not Battle Line, because they are cultist equivalents, but they are not Battle Line in this army.
Yeah, with this army, because everything is going to be expensive because you are playing an elite army that's of Psychers, I think there would have been if they were Battle Line, there would have been a temptation to just run Zangors.
Yeah. So basically this is kill your own Zangors for enhanced effect, which we already saw on the Zangor Shamans, who can pop bodyguard units to make their attacks better. This allows you to pop multiple models in a unit to get better at wounding or to reduce the wound roll. That one, the -1 to wound, it depends on what the attack coming in as and what unit you're using it on, because it's mostly going to be for the Zangor Shaman, I think, to benefit, because if I'm losing D3 models from a unit of Zangors, I better hope the difference is going to save me more than 3 units of Zangor, or 3 models of Zangors when the unit gets attacked. But if somebody's coming in with a precision attack, I would absolutely kill 3 bodyguards to be -1 to be wounded. So there it makes sense. And then on the attack, I might be willing to give up 1 or 2 Zangors to make every Zangor +1 to wound, because that can make a big difference. And then with Chaos Spawn, because they've got the 5-up Feel No Pain, the Mortal Wounds doesn't feel as bad because you might shrug off a couple of them.
Yeah.
Your enhancements, Warp Meld Dagger. All of these are Zangor Shaman. Well, no, actually, I tell you what, there's one that is not Zangor Shaman. So there's 3 that are Zangor Shaman only. First one is Warp Meld Dagger. Every time the bearer attempts a ritual just before determining the psychic test, you can use this enhancement. The bearer suffers D3 mortal wounds. If it is not destroyed as a result, add 1 to the psychic test result for each of those mortal wounds suffered. So it is specifically the bearer, so you can't spread these. It's not the bearer's unit, it is the bearer, so you can't spread these to your bodyguard. And this is a weird case where I hope I take the 3 mortal wounds, because I'd want the 3 to get the better effect of whatever ritual I'm casting. Kind of interesting. It's D3 mortal wounds, and a Zangor Shaman has how many wounds? Has 4. That's risky, especially if you then roll doubles. Because if you roll any doubles and then he dies, the power doesn't go off anyway, because the model has to survive to have the power go off. So that one feels like it could be a trap.
Yeah.
Because I think the risk there, you only do it if you don't channel the warp. Because if you channel the warp, you're asking for too many chances at a double or triple. You'll just fail the ability. So you still have like a 1 in 6 chance because there's 6 choices out of 36 that are doubles. So that's still very risky. Moving on, Diamond of Distortion, Zangor Shaman model only. While the bear is leading a unit, every time an attack targets that unit, subtract 1 from the hit roll. That one's very solid. Braylord, Sorcerer or Infernal Master only. The bearer has Scout 6 inches, and they can join Zangors.
Nice.
Like that, yeah, that one's just useful. And then Flowing Flesh, Zangor Shaman model only. The bearer has Feel No Pain 4-up and a Wounds characteristic of 5. And that's the reason that can't be combined with Warp Meld Dagger.
Yep. Yep.
Honestly, I think in this one, the Warp Meld Dagger is the one I'm least likely to take. I think like Flowing Flesh is almost a must take because 4-up Feel No Pain and that extra wound is very solid. The Diamond of Distortion is very good for having a defensive unit, and Braylord for splashing in something that isn't a Zangor, and Sorcerer and Infernal Master are the ones that can give lethal and sustained hits.
Mm-hmm.
So those are all really solid. Your stratagems are Gift of Change. For 1 CP, you target a Thousand Suns character model from your army that was just destroyed, and you can just add a Tzeentch Chaos Spawn unit containing 1 model to your army. So you died, and then you exploded into a spawn.
Okay with it.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I am losing a sorcerer, but I'm not losing a model.
That is how, like, back in the day, how Spawn used to work. So
right.
I like that.
Warped Vicissitude in your opponent's shooting or fight phase. After they have attacked one of your Zangor units, your unit gets a 4-up invulnerable save. For 1 CP, that's exceptional, especially with all the things you can do to reduce wound rolls, to reduce hit rolls. That's actually really useful. Deranged Ferocity, in the fight phase just after a Tzeentch mutant unit from your army is selected to fight. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit piles in, they can pile in or consolidate 6 inches. And they can count units that are within 3 inches as being engaged, not just units that are in base to base. Blessed Transmutations for 1 CP. You select a Thousand Suns Psyker unit from your army and a friendly Zangor unit below starting strength, and within 12 of you, restore up to D3+1 destroyed models to the Zangor's unit. Also very solid.
Yeah, very good.
Touched by Tzeentch. At the start of your movement phase, you select a Tzeentch mutant unit from your army. They can advance and charge or shoot in advance. And then Twisted Mirage. For 1 CP in the reinforcement step of your movement phase, you select a Tzeentch mutant unit from your army that is arriving from strategic reserves. It can deep strike at 3 inches or 9 inches if it's a monster. Which I didn't even think to look at that keyword. Is the Mutilith Vortex Beast a mutant? It sure is.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, that also kind of changes the rubric, and it has a 5-up Feel No Pain as well. So yeah, that depending on what somebody's attacking like a Meteor Vortex Beast with, I might be willing to take D3 mortal wounds to make you -1 to wound with that like las cannon or something. That might absolutely be worth it. Honestly, I think when I first looked at this detachment rule, I wasn't as sold on it for the Zangors themselves, and I'm still not in many cases. Although on the attack, I think it might be worth it.
Yeah.
But for the things this makes strong and like how good the stratagems are for this one,
yeah,
I think this one's got legs. I think
it gives you a completely different way to play, because this is definitely much more of a melee style, horde style. It allows you to still supplement it with Thousand Suns and psychic, but yeah, you're almost playing a completely different army than like the other detachments, which is fun. I like that.
Yeah. No, I do like this one. And this is the one where you're most likely to be able to flood the board, because you can have because as battle line you can have up to 120 Zangors plus 3 units of regular enlightened, 3 units of great bow enlightened. So they've doubled the number of enlightened you can have. And then 3 shaman, and the fact that you can splash in a sorcerer and infernal master and still have them join you into Zangors.
Yeah,
and then
that's fantastic.
And you have access to, and your spawn get better, and the Mutilith Vortex Beasts, like you're not lacking for any anti-tank or big hitter abilities. Now this one's solid. This one's really good. And then let's see, number 4 is the Rubrique Phalanx, and this one is a throwback to the Rubric Marines of old with the All is Dust ability. Each time an attack with an unmodified damage characteristic of 1 is allocated to a Rubrique model from your army, add 1 to any armor saving throw made against that attack. So that also affects your Scarab Occult Terminators. I told you it was important that Rubrique keyword was on there. Enhancements. Risen Rubrique, Thousand Suns model only. At the start of the declare battle formation steps, select either 2 Rubrique battle line units or another Rubrique unit, so Rubric Marines or Scarab Occult Terminators. The units get infiltrators. Screw the Sekhetar Robots. I'll take a squad of Rubric Marines with Warp Flamers, and I'll do just fine.
Heck yeah.
Arcane Thralls. Thousand Suns only. While a friendly Rubrique unit is within 9 inches of the bearer, you can reroll battle shock tests taken for that unit. Lord of the Rubrique, Thousand Suns model only. While the bearer is leading a unit, each time a Rubrique model in that unit makes an attack, add 1 to the hit roll. And then Staff Abominus, Thousand Suns infantry model only. The bearer's melee weapons have sustained hits D3 and devastating wounds. I actually think the Arcane Thralls one is the weakest of them, and none of them are bad. And oh, how I wish Sekhetar Robots had the Rubrique keyword. It would actually make them worth taking in this detachment.
Yes. Yeah.
Your strats. Ardent Automata. Just after one of your Rubrique units falls back, they can shoot and charge. Inexorable Advance. They can ignore any or all modifiers to their move characteristic and to advance rolls, and all their ranged weapons get Assault. That makes very happy. That is one other change that I did not mention earlier. Rubric Marines went from 5 inches of movement to 6 inches of movement. So they sped up a little bit. They got better AP. This gives them Assault and ignoring penalties to advance. So now they're faster and they gain Assault with this strat. That's great.
Yeah, very useful. Very fun.
Infernal Fusillade. Choose one of your Thousand Sun Psychers that hasn't been selected to shoot yet. Until the end of the phase, all Inferno Bolt Pistols, Inferno Bolt Guns, Inferno Combi Bolters, and Inferno Combi Weapons equipped by models in your unit have the Psychic ability and Strength 5. Yes, please, yes, very much. Unfortunately, you don't get the abilities from the Grand Cabal detachment to make those Psychic abilities better, but still, the Strength 5 is more than worth it. Revenge of the Rubrique. In your opponent's shooting phase, just after a Thousand Suns Psyker model in your army is destroyed, you pick a Rubrique unit that was within 6 inches of them, and the Rubrique can shoot back at the unit that killed your Psyker. Implacable Guardians. Just after an opponent targeted one of your Rubric Marine Psyker units, until the end of the phase, each time an attack is allocated to a model in your unit, excluding Psyker models, subtract 1 from the damage. And then Unwavering Phalanx. Then that Placable card is 2 CP, by the way, but reducing the damage, which will basically turn one of those like Marine Killer style attacks to one that will not wipe out your unit. Now, it does become a modified damage heuristic, so you wouldn't get the +1 AP against those attacks. So
Sure.
And then finally, Unwavering Phalanx. In your opponent's charge phase, just after your enemy unit ends a charge move, you pick after they specifically have to have charged when you're Rubrica Marines until the end of the turn. They are -1 to wound your Rubrica in close combat. If you like Rubrica Marines, this is a fantastic detachment.
Yeah, this is the way to play them.
It makes them play the way they used to. Yeah. And then finally, the Warp Forged Cabal, your vehicle detachment, which features Sekhetar robots in the artwork. I'm sorry. I want to I really want to try to give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe I'm being unfairly mean, but here's your detachment rule. Warp Fire Infusion. Every time a Thousand Suns vehicle unit from your army is selected to shoot or fight, apply one of the following rules. If they're within 6 inches of one or more friendly Thousand Sun Psychers, they can re-roll 1 hit roll, 1 wound roll, and 1 damage roll. If they're not within 6 inches of a Thousand Sun Psyker, they can re-roll 1 hit roll, 1 wound roll, or 1 damage roll. So if Psyker's nearby, they re-roll 1 of each. If they're not nearby, you can re-roll 1 of them.
So right there, I will say that that actually does make the Sekhetar robots with like the melta guns better, because you're able to take much more effectiveness out of the one shot you get. So
yeah. Now, there is a downside. Every time a Thousand Suns vehicle model from your army with the Deadly Demise ability is destroyed while it's within 6 inches of one or more friendly Thousand Suns Psyker units, you know, the range the Deadly Demise does damage in, the Deadly Demise ability goes off on a 5-up instead of a 6.
you say a downside, I say that's fun.
I think it is fun, but it is a downside.
I mean, it doesn't just impact your guys. Like if you blow up in the middle of the enemy unit, they're also taking wounds on a 5. So
now I will say this is another one in the Sekhetar robots' favor. They don't have Deadly Demise.
Oh well, that's not fun.
All the rest
I just
of your
like things
vehicles
blowing
do. I know you like things blowing up. Like so. Basically, it's like we wanted to give this rule to Sekhetar robots, but we didn't want to give it to just Sekhetar robots, so we made a detachment for it, which pretty much confirms you won't be playing Sekhetar robots anywhere else.
Yeah. I mean, now on the flip side of this, like these are strong abilities, so like your Vindicator, you know, or your Predators and stuff, like being able to reroll wounds, hits, damage, like that's going to make all of those vehicles much better. This is a strong ability for, vehicles. And this is one of the Chaos factions that we mentioned earlier. You're going to take vehicles because you're going to like their shooting. So,
right. Yeah. And, the fact that their Predators have really good synergy with Psychers, like, they get better at attacking things that a Psyker has attacked. The fact that your Mauler Fiends are wanting to run as bodyguard for Psychers, that actually plays very nicely with this. It just does make them a little bit riskier to be around. Doesn't mean they will explode, just means they're twice as likely to explode. So, your enhancements, Warp Siphon, Thousand Suns, all these are Thousand Suns models only. Warp Siphon, while the bearer is within 6 inches of one or more friendly Thousand Sun vehicle units, each time the bearer channels the warp, after you roll the additional d6, but before checking for doubles or triples, you can use this enhancement. If it does select one of those vehicle units, the vehicle suffers a mortal wound, and you can re-roll that additional d6. That's actually really nice. I do like that. Trade a mortal wound for not blowing up your Psyker.
Yeah.
Perplexing Cloak for Thousand Suns infantry model only, so no Demon Princes. While the bearer is within 3 inches of one or more friendly Thousand Suns vehicles units, the bearer has Lone Op. That's why they didn't put it on the Demon Prince, because that would be too many things that could give it Lone Op.
Mm-hmm.
But having a sorcerer who has Lone Op when next to a unit of Sekhetar, that actually, again, makes the Sekhetar useful.
Yep.
Biomechanical mutation, Thousand Suns model only. In your command phase, you can select up to one friendly Thousand Suns vehicle model within 6 inches. The model regains up to D3 lost wounds. That's solid. Just since you don't have access to Warp Smiths, that's a good way to basically get a Warp Smith. And Warp Cursed Rune Master, Thousand Suns model only. While the bearer is within 6 inches of one or more friendly Thousand Sun vehicle units, each time the bearer manifests a ritual, while resolving the ritual, add 6 inches to the range. So just if you're within 6 inches of a vehicle, you have 6-inch range on your rituals.
Nice.
Yeah, so there's some good synergy we're already seeing. Like, I like synergy. This is better synergy, I think, than the demon detachment did. So I like this. So your strats: Hex-marked armor. When somebody decides to shoot or fight one of your vehicles, worsen the AP of the incoming attack by 1. Mutate landscape. Select a psyker unit within range of an objective you control. It makes the objective sticky, and while that marker, it basically makes it mutated. It stays under your control, and while it's mutated and under your control, each time the enemy unit ends a normal advance, fallback, or charge move within range of the objective marker, roll a d6. On a 4-up, they take d3 mortal wounds. So it makes a sticky, trapped objective, which is cool. Cyber Spirit Machinations. After one of your vehicles falls back, you select the vehicle and a psyker within 6 inches. So basically, there has to be a psyker within 6 inches to use the strat. Until the end of your turn, the vehicle can shoot and charge after falling back. Malevolent Animus. Choose a Thousand Suns vehicle and that's within 6 inches of a psyker. Until the end of your next command phase, your vehicle is malevolent. While a unit is malevolent, it can ignore any or all modifiers to weapon skill, ballistic skill, or any roll or test made for it, not counting saving throws. Ensorcelled Infusion. In your shooting phase, you choose a vehicle that's within 6 inches of a psyker. Until the end of the phase, all your ranged weapons on that vehicle gain psychic, and their attacks are +1 to wound. And remember, you're also re-rolling all those hits and wounds because you're within 6 inches of a psyker. And then finally, Warp Flame Gargoyles. After your opponent has ended a charge move within and is within engagement range of a Thousand Suns vehicle, roll a d6 or roll 6d6. For each 5-up, they take a mortal wound, and they must then make a battle shock test. So this is a really good vehicle detachment as long as you're running the psychers nearby. I do think this detachment may make Sekhetar worth using. Like, I feel like this is kind of like the Kroot detachment for Sekhetar.
Mm-hmm. No, that's fair.
Because I don't think Kroot are generally worth using outside of the Kroot detachment, and I think Sekhetar are not generally worth using outside the vehicle detachment. In the vehicle detachment, they've got some real potential.
Well, the good thing about this, too, is that there are just so many options to put psychers in this army. You know, you've got Zangors, you've got Sorcerers, Exalted Sorcerers, you've got Dis, you've got Arma. Like, you can really build this out and really synergize with it. And yeah, they make Sekhetar robots better, but as I was mentioning, like, they make Vindicators better, they make Defilers better, they make Mauler Fiends better. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a really strong one. I think this is one that you might see competitively a lot more, just because I think there's some more tricks and things you can do with that. Because I mean, heck, just putting a bunch of like Land Raiders out there and running Sorcerers behind it just to get like the extra las cannon shots and toughness. Like,
yeah,
there's a lot of fun things you can do with this.
Yeah. Even like popping a unit of rubrics out of a rhino, because the rubrics are a psyker unit because there's a psyker in them, and now you're within 6 inches or so of the rhino, which already gives you benefits to the psychic attacks for the psyker, so it's a benefit each way. So this is a good vehicle detachment. I think it's funny that, like, I find the generalist detachment, the Grand Coven, less than thrilling, just because it is such a nerfed version of their previous detachment. I find the Change Host of Deceit, their demon detachment, underwhelming because the synergy is okay but not great. I think the cost of leaning into the synergy is maybe more than this army wants to have. Warp Meld Pact, your mutant detachment, gives you a very interesting way to play that's very different. Rubrique Phalanx is good because it just wants you to lean into your battle line and Terminator units and makes them better. And yeah, the Warp-Forged Cabal, the vehicle detachment, is actually solid and noticeably improves the units that would lean into it. So I think those last three are the better detachments, strangely enough.
Yep. I agree with that.
The question is at the end, do we think Thousand Sons players will be happy with this codex?
Well, they're Chaos players, so no.
Okay, fair.
But I think this is a solid book. I think it gives, like, Thousand Sons still suffer from the problem that all non-Death Guard Chaos Legions suffer from, and that there's just not as many options. I don't know if they necessarily, like, if it matters too much they lost Cultists, but, like, yeah, there's not a lot of unit profiles in here. There's not a lot of, like, specific units. You do have some flexibility with the amount of sorcerers you have. They did keep all of their vehicle options, so you have, I think, more units that work for them and, like, what you're trying to do. So, like, I think there's a couple of interesting ways to play. I think if you want to lean into the classic Thousand Sons, there's a way to play that. I think if you want to lean into vehicles, there's a way to play that. If you want to lean into the new Zangors, there's a fun way to play that. I even think that even though it's not, like, super, super strong, if you want to lean into, like, the fun, like, Bash Brothers, like Magnus and Kairos Fateweaver, like, that, the ability to do that's pretty fun, and you don't lose a lot. So I think it's a solid book. Thousand Sons are always an interesting balance because, as we've talked about, you can easily nerf them or push them too far one way or the other, and they become unbeatable or straight garbage. So yeah, we'll see how it kind of winds up here. This does nothing to fix their Grotmus detachment as well. Like, that one's still bad.
Right. Because that one just cares about what on the board you control, and it will have absolutely no synergy with the Cabal of Sorcerers ability. It's
And so there's some good, there's some bad. I think if you want to play this way, I think if you want to play a psychic shooting army, this is probably the best way to do it, especially from a chaos perspective. Yeah, so I think they definitely play a lot different than the other three Chaos Legions and the vanilla Chaos Marine book. So if that's what you're looking for, that's what it does.
Yeah, I don't know if I would agree with the idea that other than Death Guard, they have fewer options. They have a ton of options. It's just they are all different varieties of sorcerer.
Yeah. Well, they don't have a lot of things that do different things.
That's
yeah. So yes, they have a lot of, like, sorcerer options. Like, you can literally flood the board with sorcerers because you've got Ahriman. You could take three Infernal Masters, 3 Exalted Sorcerers, 3 regular Sorcerers, 3 Exalted Sorcerers on disc. I mean, you can take a lot of sorcerers.
You will run out of points before you take all the possible sorcerers you have, and also your battle line units have sorcerers embedded in them.
Yeah.
So.
But the fact that you have one battle line unit, you've got only, like, one other, like, infantry unit, of Terminators, like, it can feel a little thin on the ground. Like, the only downside of playing, like, the Rubric Ray is, it's just a lot of the same unit,
Yeah,
But, that's why you play Cult Legions, I play Thousand Sons because I like playing Rubric Marines. I play World Eaters because I like Berserkers. I play Death Guard because I like Plague Marines.
I do think that with the change to Cabal of Sorcerers, because it is not based on, like, your sorcerers contributing points to a pool, there's less incentive to load in as many sorcerers as you possibly can.
Yeah.
As long as you have enough sorcerers to pull off 4 spells a turn, you can, like, use the points to otherwise drop in maybe some of the other vehicles, or, hey, if I splash, if I bring in a Mutalith Vortex Beast, I'm not screwing myself on my Cabal of Sorcerers ability, that kind of thing.
And you're not degrading as well. That's the big thing.
Yeah. That's the other thing. So, like, is that worth trading off the consistency and the power level of the old Cabal of Sorcerers ability? I think it might be. Like, it didn't get so much worse that it's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty of ways. I do think that giving you the option to channel the warp, knowing the risk of, you're more likely to get a double, but also like it'll be interesting to see how if they keep it worded the fact that the unit suffers D3 mortal wounds, which allows, like, again, you can like have those rubric marines take the hits for you if you roll doubles or triples. Like those units are possibly just as effective, and if you only roll like one, you didn't lose a model because they're 2 wound models.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be interesting to see if they keep it that way or if they errata it so that the psyker takes the wounds or not. That seems like it's more the intent, but we'll see if that sticks. Thousand Sons. I was saying this before we started recording. Thousand Sons of all, like, at this point, I have technically played 3 of the 4 God Legions because I had World Eaters. I gave you the World Eaters. I had World Eaters before you did. I've played Emperor's Children. I haven't played the new official version of Emperor's Children, but I was playing Emperor's Children back before they exist as a faction. I've played Death Guard. Thousand Sons are the one God-specific legion that I have never been drawn to. And I can't point to one thing as to why not, other than I don't want to paint that many yellow and blue stripes.
Well, I think in general, like, this is a conversation we've had off and on over the years. Tzeentch has always been the one Chaos God that's hardest to translate to the tabletop, because like speed, excess, like Slaanesh, like that's easy enough. Rage, melee, yeah, okay. Resilience, toughness, that's easy enough. But like magic and like manipulation, it's a little bit harder to translate, and it's a little bit more abstract. And I don't know that they've ever 100% nailed it for Tzeentch to the tabletop, whether it be demons or Thousand Sons or whatever. So yeah, it's a little bit more abstract, and that's that probably, I mean, look, I'm a simple person. I like smash thing with hammer, so like I don't do subtlety.
Right. But yeah, Thousand Sons, like, I don't hate it. I don't necessarily dislike the army, and I think this is a fine book. It's been toned down in some ways, but then pumped up with others, like the Rubric A having much better AP on their guns is kind of scary. Mm-hmm. Having better movement makes them more useful, and like they didn't lose anything of note in the codex.
Yeah,
other than having cultists, which most people were taking Zangors instead of cultists anyway,
as you should be,
and having a cheaper on foot version of Ahriman available.
The one thing I guess I'll say that's kind of interesting now that I'm kind of thinking about it, whatever your opinion on the change to psychics powers in 10th edition, in general, I think this army's more appealing to play now. The fact that psychic powers are a little bit more streamlined, because in previous editions, there was always like this just extra bookkeeping, this extra step, like these extra options that could feel overwhelming with Thousand Sons. And here, like, yeah, you just have like psychic abilities on your shooting. Like they just made them a really good shooting army with psychic keywords. Mm-hmm. And yes, that does take away a little bit of their flavor, but it makes them much more appealing to somebody who is just starting. Like there's a lot lower of a learning curve. So whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing, it is what it is.
Yeah. You just replace that learning curve with the learning curve of painting yellow and blue stripes.
Yeah, but that's a difference. Look, if you don't paint anything, then the painting doesn't become a problem.
Fair.
And in fairness, the GW yellow contrast paints are fantastic. So
they are.
That becomes less of a problem. And like I said, you could also do the red and white color scheme, which I actually kind of like better.
Yeah, but it's not the color of the stripes that's the problem. It's the presence of the stripes, not the colors. So
you don't have to slavishly paint them the way they are on the box.
So yeah, I'm curious, and kind of curious to see where Thousand Sons are sitting right now. And yeah, they're sitting at about a 44-45% win rate. I don't think this necessarily makes them more powerful. I think at best this is a sight grade. I feel like it might be a bit of a nerf for an army that currently didn't need a nerf, but as we've said a couple of times now already, that if you push them too far, they get overpowered very quickly.
Well, and I think there's still a few power, like overall, like yes, if you're trying to play them exactly the same way that you played them in the Index, it is a nerf.
Yes.
I think if you lean more into Zangors, or you lean more into Rubric Marines, or if you lean more into vehicles, I think it's definitely going to be an upgrade. So, I don't know. We'll see what ends up coming out of it. I could absolutely see the vehicle detachment being a huge hit on the competitive scene, simply because vehicles are so tough, and if you're not building your list, as we talked about with Emperor's Children, if you don't build your list to counter vehicles, or you don't have the options to counter vehicles, vehicles can just run amok. So, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. So I think that pretty much wraps up our review of Thousand Suns. So Thousand Suns players, let us know what you think of these changes. Let us know if this is a World Eater perceived level catastrophe, or if this is it's okay. I don't think anyone's going to look at this and like, oh wow, this is super cool. I don't think it's going to be that level of book. I definitely think of the three new new codexes for existing Chaos Legions, I do think Death Guard came out the strongest as far as just like straight up upgrades. But I don't think this is that, but I also and again, it's one of the armies I don't play, so Thousand Suns players, let us know what you think of this one. I'm curious to see what your take is on it. Also, if you want to help support our show, there's a couple of ways you can do that. First is to join us on Patreon. We are patreon.com/preferred enemies, and that is an online tip jar where basically none of our episodes are locked behind a paywall, although we do have some exclusive perks such as our Urban Conquest mission pack, which has been updated to 10th edition, and access to our Discord, where you can hang out with the Preferred Frenemies community. And again, to access that, it's $1 a month. You can give more if you'd like, but even just everybody piling in $1 a month, it does really add up and help, and it keeps our show income neutral, which we really appreciate. Also, you can like us on YouTube and subscribe, comment on videos, help us claw our way into the algorithm so that people actually see our videos. We'd really appreciate that. And then third is we have a merch store. If you go to preferredenemies.com/merch, you can buy hats, t-shirts, stickers, mugs, all branded with the Preferred Enemies logo or our Anxiety Commissar artwork. So I would love to have the support there as well. We've got, I believe, another episode coming before or around the same time as Midwest Conquest, and then after that we will have our Midwest Conquest episode, as always, from year after year. And remember, if you haven't joined us at Midwest Conquest yet, it's too late. We're sold out. Best problem to have. Yep. So until then, from all of us here at Preferred Enemies, I'm your host, Rob.
Kevin.
And Richard.
Good night, good gaming, and is it a little dusty in here, or is it just me?